What's up, Call of Duty fans? Welcome back once again. Good to see IHOLDSHIFT. We've got ourselves the final day of action that was coming through for Division A. Also, the last time we'll see Division A up until Anaheim. So let's go ahead and just dig right on into it, as we have a lot to kind of talk about, a lot of interesting things going through. FaZe Clan would be starting off the day versus Midnight. And well, this one we thought would be a pretty easy tell. I had this one going a 3-1 at the beginning of the day, with the potential that FaZe Clan, due to their fact that they're just not so great at search and destroy, might come into some issue there, and that would actually be 100% the case. FaZe Clan starting off really hot on the opening hardpoint that was played on Seaside. Again, I don't know why Midnight continued to go the Seaside when it just seems like they cannot figure out how to win this map at all. I mean, the last handful of times that they've played it, they have either been completely stomped on it, or they were winning and would blow a lead. This time around, it would be the stomping, a 250 to 93 route of Midnight from FaZe Clan's hands. It's now been 5 maps in a row in 2 weeks that Midnight have played, or 5 matches rather, out of the 7 that they played, where they would play up in Seaside. And again, there are some pretty staggering losses here. A couple just around the 170 to 250 mark, and then they have those 2 close losses to Evil Geniuses in Reciprocity, 232 to 250 and 242 to 250. Today would be a 93 to 250, but like I kind of predicted, FaZe Clan coming out on frequency for the Search and Destroy looked almost as lost as they would versus Evil Geniuses in the previous day, but Midnight would not let up. A very quick 6-1, and then we would get a 3-1 control, and we'll finish things off on a Arsenal hardpoint. A little bit of a closer game, but again, FaZe Clan just looks way too good. My biggest takeaway for this FaZe Clan team, as we don't have any predictions to talk about, so I'll talk a little bit more in length about these guys, is the fact of how impressive they've been in the respawn. It's not just the fact that they're winning respawn, it's that they're winning almost every single one. They only lost 2 hardpoints the entire 2 weeks, and they did not drop a single control. In fact, none of the controls went to round 5. That is super impressive. The only map they have not played on control so far is Frequency, but everywhere else they have at least 2 reps on, and everything has been 3-1s or a couple of 3-0s in the mix. Their search, again, not the greatest this last week. They were only able to win 4 total searches. One of them was in round 11. The other 2 were not as close, but still relatively close. But a lot of their losses were bad losses. They have 2 1-6 losses and a 0-6 loss from this week. So that's not good at all. So for FaZe Clan, you got to figure out a way to get that moving back in your favor. That's just needs to change. If they want to be a potential Anaheim major contender, you have to be better in search. We've seen respawn teams do well up until a certain point, and that's not what you can rely on possibly winning a championship off of. And I say that because this very well could be a championship team. For Midnight, you got to regroup and try to find out what's going on here. You got 2 weeks to get yourselves together for Anaheim. They had relatively decent weeks. Their hardpoint was a lot of back and forth. They only actually won 2 maps of hardpoint, but they had a number that were very close and they could not close. Their search and destroy was actually pretty good. They only lost 3 search maps the entire weekend, or the entire 2 weeks. That's also a very good stat to hang your head on, but like most other teams that have been put together in new fashion, they also struggle in the control. So need to fix the respawn up, need to be able to close out hardpoints. You just need to get a little bit better in control, and maybe there's some conversation there for Midnight potentially being a top 8 team in the future. Reciprocity to Evil Geniuses. Now, going into this one, Evil Geniuses was listed as the favorite, and I didn't feel nearly as optimistic about it. Reciprocity would come out swinging with the hardpoint. Dylan was on fire the entirety of the day today. Just every single map, he was a major production. And again, Denz is playing well. And you talk about Shawnee and Wuskin on the Maddoxes, as hard stuck Maddoxes now, they're performing better as well. So the biggest thing here was Zed and Dylan were popping off against Evil Geniuses, a 250 to 85 opening hardpoint. We'd then go to a round 11 on our search and destroy, which honestly Reciprocity had a number of times to close out when they weren't able to do it. Evil Geniuses, though, kind of what I figured we would go to. Both teams like the Arsenal control. We would go there. Evil Geniuses, that's the only place they've been able to win control, was on Arsenal. They would do that here, sending us to a 2-1 map count as Reciprocity would be down. We would go to a hard point. That would be played on Frequency, and a very back and forth affair. Very close. A lot of drama today. A lot of Frequency hard points and controls that have been going absolutely to the last minute. And that would be a Reciprocity win. So map 5, search and destroy. Well, it was played on Arsenal, and Reciprocity did not slow down. A 6-3. Reciprocity take the set 3-2, and I have to just kind of pose this question. We've heard enough about Dens, we've heard enough about Dylan, we've heard enough about Shawnee and Wuskin, but what happens if this team performs well and finishes top 6 at Anaheim and Tommy decides he's ready to come back? I think that's going to be a very difficult decision to make now, simply because Reciprocity, with the subbing of Dens, just went flawless on hardpoint. They finished their last 7 hardpoints off 7-0. Insane. In fact, their search and destroy was also very good throughout the entirety of these last 2 weeks. Most specifically, this week they only lost once, and that was in round 11 today. The Evil Geniuses. Their control is their biggest issue, but this Reciprocity team, with how strong they've looked in the search as well as in the hardpoint with the switch up of Dens coming in as AR, have put them in a very contending spot for potentially being a top 6 squad. It just comes down to they need to be better at the control, because again, their search is good, their hardpoint is good, but a lot of those wins that did come in the last week have been very, very close wins, and have usually had to come on the back end of a pretty incredible comeback. So some things to work on for Reciprocity, but for Evil Geniuses, again, you worry about their search and destroy. They weren't very good there at all over the last 2 weeks. They've only won 4 of their maps that they played in search, and most of those wins were not comfortable by any stretch. Now, they did lose a couple of searches in round 11 as well, 2 5-6 losses, once against UYU and another against Midnight, but you need to be doing better in the search, I think. You need to be able to close these out if you're Evil Geniuses. Put that much more in your favor, because their hardpoint has looked very good. A couple of interesting and kind of bad losses throughout, but they only lost 3 times in hardpoint over the last 2 weeks. Their control, again, looked better in Arsenal, but looked terrible everywhere else. So you got to find a way to kind of diversify your map pool for Evil Geniuses. And then going forward, Gen G and UYU. UYU having that close 5-game set versus Reciprocity yesterday would be here to battle against Gen G, who desperately needed a win after they've been kind of struggling throughout the last 2 weeks as well, with the exception of being able to take down Luminosity the previous day. So we'd start this set off, and Gen G would start off on fire, 250 to 205, although UYU, again, their hardpoint losses have been very close hardpoint losses. They were putting together a nice little comeback against Gen G, but not quite able to finish things off, and then Gen G would smoke the search and destroy a flat, fast 6-0 on what was, that was on Hacienda. Then we go to control, and UYU would start off hot, and Gen G, we started to get the kind of bits of concern. You know, Gen G is either sometimes really good at search and then not good at control, or not so great at search and really good at control. Today, it was a really good search day, so having them being down 2-0, I was sitting here thinking, well, maybe they're just having a bad control day. Well, they would start to come back and just narrowly miss out on the 3-0 opportunity in round number 5. They wouldn't quite be able to pull back the reverse sweep on control, so they would lose that one in 5. Then we'd go to hardpoint on gridlock. An insane matchup, UYU able to battle throughout the entirety of it, and goodness, did Royalty show up today. He looked very good in the SOG line, and he was giving Havoc a big run for his money. And this would actually go to Game 5, reverse sweep on the line for UYU. We'd play Search and Destroy on Gridlock to figure out who would take all of the marbles for this one. And UYU would not put much question on it. A 6-2 win. Gen G have lost another reverse sweep. You know I love my stats, so let's just go ahead and count up the number of times that this squad has lost a map 5. You would have to go all the way back to Fort Worth versus Optic, the last time Gen G was able to take a game 5, and I believe that was actually in reverse sweep fashion there. They would go on to lose a best of 5 versus Reciprocity in their next match, and then you'd fast forward to London. They got reverse swept by 100 Thieves. Same thing would happen to Optic or versus Optic in the Pro League regular season when we came back, and then Reciprocity, and now UYU add to the total. Gen G just cannot close out sets, and gosh, I want to like this team so much, but it's so concerning the amount of times this team gets not only reverse swept, but just can't close out a search and destroy or finish off a hard point that they should win. It's just insane the amount of closing potential this team has just given away. The opposite squads, not what you want to see for UYU. Not a bad ending to their week, to be honest. You go backwards, again, their last 6 search or hard points rather have been down to the wire. Either they win it in the last second or they just narrowly lose. You think of that 248 to 250 loss to Reciprocity yesterday. They also had a 189 to 250, a 225 to 250, a 205 to 250, and then in their second match from week 1 against Evil Geniuses, there was a 246 to 250. So for as much shade as this team has gotten, they are starting to clean things up and win those games that they were narrowly losing. You'd like to see that. Their Search and Destroy still a bit of a concern for me. They went about half 50-50 for it, and same instance for their Control. So this team is getting better, but are they a contender? I would say not quite yet, but getting that win versus Gen G's got to feel great. They found their other win versus Luminosity, so they did go essentially 2-5 for their divisional split. Not the greatest, but not the worst, and I think going into Anaheim, you should feel a little bit more comfortable about how things were going. We'll finish off our day here with Optic and Luminosity. And Optic, you know, with Ricky coming in for Luminosity, it was kind of a, I would say, a much easier task for Optic to be able to find the 3-0 here, which they would. But what didn't come out some interesting situations as Luminosity almost actually able to take the frequency hardpoint. They were up at the end, but Optic would find the last couple of seconds of contest on Hill 2, which would force ourselves into another rotation of hardpoints, and Optic would just hold on. They got themselves about 30 points in that hill, which gave them the comeback, but they were 2 points away from losing, 248 to 250. And then how about this interesting moment on Search and Destroy? Optic decided to have some fun, came out on payload with 4 sniper rifles, and it worked for not 1, not 2, but 3 rounds. They ended up going up 4-1 at one point in time. It would end up being a 6-3, and then Optic able to hold on with a very close control match again versus Luminosity, holding on and actually looking decidedly, I'd say, better with Ricky in the mix. And a lot of conversation as Formal's been the main AR. He was popping off with the Maddox, and you wonder if that might be one of the reasons why there is going to be some changing with this roster, is the fact that Formal is playing really well with the Maddox, and you're just wasting so much potential for him sitting with an AR and locking down anchor spots. You want him to be in the mix and getting these kills, and he showed exactly how he's able to do that with the Maddox today on all 3 of those maps. But Optic would take the set 3-0. So taking a look as far as what that meant for our bets going into it, I had a couple of spicy ones. Again, a 3-way parlay bet with FaZe, Optic, and Gen G would ruin a huge day for me. But we still were able to find ourselves the win with Reciprocity at plus 165 versus Evil Geniuses, and the spread bet of Optic that was sitting at a minus 120 or something like that. One I bet on it at least. So not a bad day overall. I think overall in predictions, like total match predictions, I only got 2 wrong in the entire weekend. One was the Gen G game, and one I think was, I forget the other one, Reciprocity or something like that. I don't remember exactly what it was. But hey, or maybe it was the UIU game. I don't remember. I can't recall, but I only lost 2 games today, so that's awesome. Let's take a look at our standings before we finish things off and get closer to our power rankings time. Division A is completely done. We'll be seeing Division B for the next 2 weeks. Optic in the first spot. How about FaZe Clan? Again, able to do everything well. They find themselves in the 2nd place spot. Gen G in 3rd after their slip, and then Reciprocity also holding the tiebreaker over Midnight boosts them up to 4th. And then you see Evil Geniuses with a tiebreaker over UIU, and Luminosity will be at the very bottom. Talk about quite the fall from grace. So Division B will be coming up next time, and we will be doing our power rankings and our week setup. That's about all I'll have time to do. I have a lot of things going on this weekend. If you're going to be in the Charlotte area, I'm still considering possibly going out to the CLT esports thing happening on Saturday, but I also will be casting the Checkmate Gaming 3v3 SND Elite on Saturday night. So if you want to get some friends together and play in that, make sure you check it over on checkmategaming.com/elite. That's all I got, though. Catch you guys next time. Until then, though, hope you keep holding it down. Later. Bye-bye.